He clung to the coattails of the Valari, begging with all his might. It was all in vain though, as the stocky Valari, practically a moving rock, continued step after step dragging Hani as he refused to let go. All around panic filled the air as creatures of all kinds moved to and fro, packing everything they could into their ships. A Grothak hurled bright pink metal crates like an Olympic arthropal champion, while a Yol raced an overburdened cart filled to the brim with supplies, and the Valari kept walking. The pleading continued until the Valari reached the loading bay of its ship, where it turned around and looked at Hani one last time, before gripping its coat. With a tremendous tug he pulled it from Hani's grasp, and then delivered a swift kick to Hani's thorax, sending him sprawling across the dark rich earth. Without empathy the Valari used a manipulator and motioned to get the ship off the ground. Hani raised a limb silently pleading anyone to stay, but was quickly pulled back away from the ships by fellow Aoians. They struggled with Hani as he wrestled against them, digging into the soft earth trying to gain a hold. Further and further he was pulled until the soil gave way to a hardened path, which is when Hani finally tore his gaze away from the ships launching on the horizon. His fellow Aoians let go and motioned for him to follow. And after taking a few half steps, he recognized a funeral shrine. Hani looked up at the sky and watched as ship after ship hit full burn and left the atmosphere. His 6 legs gave out as he crumpled and fell against the shrine. He had broadcast out across the galaxy a request to any who would listen or take the money. Mercenaries, private armies, guns for hire, and thugs flocked to this small harvest world to the tune of the entire planet's wealth. Now he gazed as they fled as fast as their ion drives could take them and accepted that his people were doomed. They had never created weaponry or much technology and did not know of conflict until it was introduced by wayward travelers. They were happy with the place that bore them and never desired much more than they needed, even with the temptations that had arisen with galactic trade. Now Hani and his people had gathered at the place where all Aoians go to spend their few last moments in prayer. Normally a place of solitude and reflection was filled with brood mothers, young and workers alike. They all knew deep down that none would be spared by the Atari collective. It was not a matter of hate or bigotry. Rather the Aoians had something they needed and nothing to stop them from taking it, centering on the idea of survival of the fittest. The collective needed a harvest planet to feed its populace, and it was simply a coincidence to them that the Aoian happened to evolve from there. Deep in thought, Hani had barely noticed a shadow that had slowly covered him. Turning his attention to the source of the shadow, there stood a bipedal creature easily double his height, clad in dark metallic gray metal. Slung over its shoulder, with an arm for counterbalance, was a hunk of metal, as tall as it was, and a little bit more. It stared at Hani for a moment, before extending its free manipulator, helping him back to his feet. Once up, Hani gave the metal behemoth a once-over. The metal had a golden hue in the areas where the paint had worn and chipped away. And despite its massive size, it had been incredibly gentle, as it had helped Hani to his feet. Clearing his throat, he finally broke the silence between the two and spoke. "You were not among those who answered the broadcast. I would have remembered someone like you." The individual simply stared silently before lifting the slab of metal off its shoulder. At that moment every sensor in Hani's body was screaming, yet he was frozen in place. Unable to move or react, Hani had a sort of epiphany where he accepted the fate that had been dealt to him today, that he was going to die. Without eyelids to close his eyes and frozen in place, he could not look away. He watched as the blade descended, coming nowhere near him and instead plunging easily into the hardened path next to the metal-clad individual. It removed its helmet, revealing dark tan skin and jet black hair, which had been cropped fairly short. It spoke in a language Hani could not understand, but was quickly followed by a very different voice, which spoke clearly in his own language. My name is Balaleka. Sorry we're a bit late, we had to. She paused for a moment before continuing, commandeer some supplies. Balaleka grasped the hilt and effortlessly pulled the hunk of metal from the ground and rested it against its shoulder with what was practically a twirl of its fingers. With a nod, it motioned for Hani to follow and began to move in the opposite direction of the shrine. Without taking as much as a moment to think, Hani first took a half step, a full step, and began to fall in behind the creature. A million thoughts raced through his head as he moved further and further from the shrine. The hardened path gave way once again to the soft soil with the marks from Hani's struggle still present. Onward they walked to where just moments ago hundreds of ships rested, and now instead lay just 3. About 300 individuals in armor similar to Balaleka's milled about unloading cargo, among many other things. For a place where the demise of every living creature was imminent, the atmosphere was particularly calm. As Hani's days slowly wore away, panic once again began to grip his very soul. Not enough, not enough, not enough. Hani was cut off as Balaleka turned around and questioned. Not enough what? Not enough troops, not enough supplies, not enough. Hani began to walk around the developing camp, and Balaleka put her helmet back on and lazily followed at a distance. Much of the things he did not recognize, from the machinery they used, to the ships, and even the food that lay about, everything had a certain oddity to it. 3/4 of the way through the camp, his eyes came to rest on some items he had seen earlier that day, as he was dragged along holding onto a Valori's coattail with a death grip. In a neatly stacked pile were the bright pink crates the Grothak had thrown, and sitting next to them was an overburdened cart with assorted supplies. As he looked around, he began to recognize almost all of the surrounding equipment from earlier in the day. Turning around, he found Balaleka watching him, manipulators crossed, and her reaction masked by her helmet. How did you get these supplies? Like I said earlier, we commandeered them. I know, but how? Those crates belong to the SLO private army, and I know for certain that the supplies came from the Lopum Syndicate. They are not the type of folks who you can waltz up to and steal from. Commandeer. Whatever you call it. Though I guess it doesn't matter, because 300 individuals. Actually around 450. It doesn't matter, because it still isn't enough. Earlier today, I had tens of thousands stand before me, ready for the payment of a lifetime. They were gone the next centicycle, at the simple mention of fighting against the collective. During this exchange, Balaleka had calmly been staring at the crops that went on as far as the eye could see. Thin and tall, they came up to its shoulder, colored golden brown, glowing in the fading light. Suddenly a humongous boom, which shook the very ground they stood on, erupted overhead. It was followed by another, and yet another. Looking up, Hani saw ship after ship jump into the atmosphere, igniting portions of the surrounding air. Nonchalantly, Balaleka started to talk. Wealth can be a great incentive, spurring action in those where it is unwarranted. Though wealth in itself can only take you so far. After you have reached that point, like you did this morning, you have to be able to offer something more. Balaleka paused as the engines from the ships overwhelmed all other sound as they joined the 3 on the ground. As soon as each ship touched down, the loading bay doors flew open, and more individuals clad in similar metal armor, but painted in assortment of different colors, poured out. They watched for a few moments before Balaleka turned back to Hani to continue. You are giving us the opportunity to fight the collective, a union of 13 different races and sub-races, which have never lost an offensive, which have never had their lines broken or scattered, have never sound the retreat, who take to war as a bureaucratic process, and who are now looking to break down your front door, kick you out, and take your cookie jar. The individuals who want to kill every single brood mother, child, and larvae for this goddamn floating ball of dirt. The same individuals who remained untouchable as they used the galactic bureaucracy to destroy our home a millennia ago. As Balaleka spoke, Hani could feel a shift in behavior, something stirring below the surface of the calm demeanor it presented, and for the first time, Hani noticed an emblem on its left shoulder. A skull impaled on a spear with some form of serpents that wound their way through 2 eye sockets and the mouth. When recognition clicked and spread across Hani's face, Balaleka turned and continued. Now we have come answering your call, and we will fight. But before we do, we must hear you say one thing. And from the look on your face, I think you know what that is. Give us the order to save you, give us the order to make war, not a specific type of war, but all war, total war. Give us the order to fight in the fields, in the streets, on the sea, and in the air. Give us the order for mutually assured destruction. Give us the order to form defensive lines, to charge, to siege, to retreat, to flank and ambush. Give us the order to unleash pestilence and commit chemical warfare. Give us the order to form rank and move out. Give us the order to fire salvos and crush resistance. Give us the order to fix bayonets and prepare for close combat. Give us the order to throw off the veil of sanity and show the true face of madness to those who threaten everything you know and love. Everything you cherish and have worked for. Give us the order to wage a human war. The troops began to converge on their location as Hani turned to face them. I, Hani, do so give you permission to wage a human war. Author's account and link to original text is in the description.